Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, 5011 fam. How y'all is?
Yeah, I like that.
How y'all is? Y'all, it's
Like
it's
a
it's Jay.
old baba.
It's Dee Dee, doing what we do. Having conversations that spark conversations here at the 5011 Chronicles. Welcome back. Okay,
Welcome back, people. How are
you
y'all?
know, we're about to get into some things because Dee and I have been reflecting. And I think just as we get older, nostalgia becomes more of a thing. Like it becomes even
Mhm.
more of a thing because we have more to remember. We have more that we can connect to from the past. So this is gonna be an episode about nostalgia. It's gonna be an episode about our inner children and the inner child work we're doing and how we're getting, healing. Healing through
Yeah.
nostalgia. That's what we'll call it. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we thank you for tuning into this episode of the 5011 Chronicles. Let's do it. Um like
That's the
we
vibe.
right. We've talked about it before on the pod, like how because of either the way we were raised or things we experienced as children, as adolescents, it's shaped who we are as adults.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, as all of us, of course, but it's shaped who we are
Yeah.
as adults. But at some point, you have to make a conscious decision to go back and kind of correct some of the things that were done
Mm-hmm.
or that you've
Break
experienced so that you
away.
can be,
Mhm.
some things have to be unlearned. Some things have to be, you have to like unbrainwash yourself. Either, what's the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for? Decondition, deprogram yourself from some of the ways that,
Deprogram.
we might have been trained or some of the things that we might have experienced just through repetition. And sometimes, at no fault to others, sometimes just life. That was just the equation. That was just part of what happened. So D, let's talk about your relationship with nostalgia in this day and age, in the era that we're currently living in. Like, what does that look like for you?
I am holding on to the 90s for dear life. Anybody that knows
Hmm.
me knows I hold on to the 90s for dear life. It's like one of my favorite eras. I feel like it was one of the best eras ever in all of the eras. So for me, anything from the way I dress to the way like I might do makeup or anything, I always go back to something in the 90s, be it,
Mm,
and a lot of it does tie into music too,
for
because
sure.
all the eras, I hold the music, the TV, and a lot of my biggest inspirations as far as even like especially with aesthetic is the
The
90s.
90s.
Like
I
I
love
still
that.
listen to Jodeci from the 90s. Like I still listen to 90s music like it just came out.
So I'm kind of like, for me, it's like I'm, and it's a wide range for me. Now, definitely 90s for nostalgia, like, because that's the
Mhm,
era I grew up in, early 2000s,
mhm,
even for me. Now, as
mhm,
far as decades I did not live through, I had this really odd relationship with the 80s. Like, the 80s is one of my absolute favorite decades, from the fashion
yeah,
to
the
the
80s was
music.
cool. Yeah, 80s was
Like
tight.
we had Michael Jackson hit like getting to a point in his prime.
Yeah.
Whitney,
80s
they
was
all,
like pop and like the pop rock era for me. Like the 80s was
yeah,
it.
Tina was, 80s into 90s. Like for me, this was a major transition in music from the clean, polished doo-wop, Motown, and disco era
Hmm.
into something
Yeah.
that had different types of feeling, different types of energy about it. Even the R&B
Hmm.
changing. R&B changed from the 80s to the 90s.
Yeah.
Like pop music changed from the 70s to the 80s. Like these were major shifts, and they set the standard for what some of these things are now. Even like the standard for R&B is
Hmm.
really 90s R&B. The standard for pop is really 80s and 90s pop. Like those are the standards that were set by the legends. So gotta love those. But even like, again, like the point that you made about the fashion and the aesthetics, like I go, people who know me as like a hippie because I
Hmm.
wear everything. Literally, I'm the end of the 60s up until the early 2000s when it comes to
I
my
was gonna
fashion.
say the fashion wise from the end of the 60s to like the 90s for me.
Hmm.
2000s fashion, early 2000s fashion was some of it was cute, but
There was a lot of
I'm gonna
crazy.
keep it between
There's a lot of crazy. But
because
I
I
like
love
to.
70s fashion. 70s fashion was
70s
great.
fashion was awesome. I love like Woodstock, which would have been into 60s fashion. I love that as
Yeah.
well. Fringe. Fringe was all through
I
the
would have
60s,
been
70s,
eating
and
up a good
80s.
bell bottom, honey.
I still eat up a good bell bottom. Like, let me tell
Okay.
you how I throw a flare on a heartbeat. But even the denim on denim and the vests and
Yes.
the like the embroidered leather and different things, like different
Mm-hmm.
colored materials, wearing bright colors like in the night. I don't know. It's just something about that era that has, I think, influenced us in particular, but influenced a lot of
Yeah.
millennials. Because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
not just to me and you think, it's so many of the millennials who I think we have that same kind of relationship with those eras. We are the bridge between old school and new school. Like, we are the bridge.
Yes.
So I think that's
And we were the
probably
last
why.
to experience certain
Hmm.
things. Like,
Hmm.
so it's like we grew up in like a golden era where it's like you still had that semblance of like pre-internet life where it's
Yeah,
like, like the internet, it was around, but it was
it wasn't as
dial up, it was
accessible. Yeah, it
slow,
wasn't
like
as
it
accessible.
wasn't
Yeah,
as accessible, it wasn't as much going on the internet.
for
So it's
sure.
like we still went outside and played a lot. We
A
still,
lot.
played video games and stuff, but we went outside a lot. We still would. I don't know if y'all did this growing up. We used to walk everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we
Like
did
when
quite a
I
bit of
say we used
walking.
to walk in fools, we used to walk everywhere. Like it was still like a little bit of that, and even people still had that little bit of sense of safety where you could, as kids, be walking, or
Hmm.
you just had to be back by the street lights. Like you can't do that now.
You
Like you
can't
just
do
got
that
to
now.
sit right here in front of the yard,
Be where I can
and
see
I
you.
got to still look at you.
Hmm.
Right, be where I can see you, because they try to be get stashed out the front of the yard. So it's like even trick or treating changed. Like I feel like '90s was the last of like that old school trick or treating feel. Child, now everybody is worried about what's in the candy. People are scared to
Period.
go knock on somebody's door. Like you
Hmm.
don't even know. Like people don't. They do like trunk or treating and stuff like that. Now is what's more popular. Where it's like when we was growing up, it was still that era. People even trick or treating at night. Like people still used to do that. So
Hmm.
it's like that was like, man, when I tell you, if I could have been like 18 in 1990, y'all would have set the 90s off. Y'all would have been able to tell me nothing. Okay.
Oh, let me tell you, I feel like that about a few different decades, like having experienced them, because Freaknik, like to have experienced that, to have experienced Woodstock, because I felt like I was supposed to be there, and I might have been there in a past
Yeah, I
life. Like,
wish
I
I
was
could
supposed to be there.
experience Woodstock.
I was supposed to be hearing all the things, experiencing all of the live acts. But actually, I pulled out my book because y'all have probably seen it on the J Safe Space or two. I love this book, Atlas of the Heart, by Dr. Brene Brown. This is like one of my favorite books because of how she breaks down emotions and emotional experiences. But I really wanted to bring this out because when I read this book, it helped me change my relationship with the word nostalgia, because I'd always
Mhm.
experienced or thought nostalgia to be one thing, like one particular thing. But when they break down what nostalgia actually is, I don't know. It helps you reframe why we feel the way we do about things.
Look, you
Okay,
know you
just
want to go pull mine out. Look, pull
look.
my copy.
You know, period. But okay, so you got to read the book, people. I'm telling you, you got to read the book because she breaks it down
Yeah.
even more. Um, Here's the bolded definition, and she does this little thing where she talks about our relationship with things, which is what brings up nostalgia. So listen, we define nostalgia as a yearning for the way things used to be in our often idealized and self-protective version of the past. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is not purely
I have to like
positive.
just feel my moves and be
That's
like
I'm
that.
like,
Like,
it's
man,
not purely
nobody.
positive.
First of all, nobody asked
Nobody
you.
asked you. Nobody asked you,
Let me
Brene.
have it, okay?
But this is what she says, and I really like the way she breaks this down. So, to imagine nostalgia, what's spoken, I wish things were the way they used to be in the good old days. What's not spoken, when people knew their places. What's
Mm,
spoken, or also what's not spoken, or what's spoken. I wish things were the way they used to be in the good old days when there was no accountability for the way my behavior affected other people. I wish things were the
mm,
way they used to be in the good old days when we ignored other people's pain if it caused us discomfort. And I wish things were the way they used to be in the good old days when my authority was absolute and never challenged. And of course, not all of those, relate to us specifically, but she was, and this is a white woman, she was talking particularly
mm.
about white supremacy.
I was gonna say we know exactly what she's
She
talking
was
about.
talking particularly about white
We know
supremacy,
exactly who be talking about the good old days.
and and really for her, she talked about the fact that nostalgia is really a double-edged sword because there is good to it, but nostalgia is in the family of emotions like bittersweet,
Hmm.
cognitive dissonance. It's in
Yeah,
that group of things, places we go when things aren't exactly what they seem. So I just wanted to share that because as we talk about nostalgia, as we talk about inner child work, I think it's important to also reflect on the fact that although there are these kind of idealized aspects of the past and what we experienced, there were some
hmm,
things that happened during those times that have also shaped who
yeah,
we are that have to be corrected. And those two are nostalgic. They are things that we
yeah,
go back and we view from a particular lens. Wow.
yeah.
Mm.
I had when I one time I wrote a letter. This was like maybe like a year or two ago. I started out writing a letter to like little me. And it ended up just being like one big long apology, just me apologizing to myself because it's like once you like heal and see yourself through different eyes and see who you really are, like you see like the good in you even then when you didn't appreciate yourself. You know
Mm.
what I mean? The things about yourself that you didn't even appreciate in the moment. And now you're grateful to have whatever that is. Or maybe it doesn't have to be like anything like looks or anything, but it could be something about your personality. You know what I'm saying? Like I loved how playful and just fun I was as a kid. Like I was always laughing, always playing, always joking. And it was like a moment. There was a time where I lost that as an adult. You know what I'm saying? And even just getting back to that person, you know what I'm saying? Connecting back to that person, like you don't appreciate it in the moment. Stuff like that is always taken for granted.
I agree. Like for me, I used to always read. Like I always had a book in my hand.
Yeah, me
I
too.
always asked for books for Christmas. Like that was what I wanted. And somewhere along the way, for me, like all of the things that made me a nerd, like I didn't want to be a nerd. I was
Hmm.
just a nerd. So I loved the reading, I loved the anime, I loved the video
Yeah.
games. I collected the cards, whether it was Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic, I had
And
them. I
I will
played the
never forget my
games.
mama for throwing my cards away. You know how, man, I could have cased them Johns up and got them graded. I had a stack,
I did
Jay.
too. I
And
did
I'm
too.
talking about reflective ones. I'm talking about the
Everything.
Gorilla Crumb.
I
I
had
had
Blue Eyes
Batman.
White Dragon. Like, honey, I was a collector, and I think
Oh,
what's interesting is I see how now as an adult and still being a collector, my collection looks different because of my previous collection. Like as a kid, I was
mhm.
collecting, like I said, video games and some comics, and I had the cards. As an adult, I collect crystals and candles and fragrances. But it's interesting because I can also look back at it and see there was a period in time where I was denying myself the pleasures of those nerdy things because I didn't want to be viewed as nerdy. I was starting to see that there's a social hierarchy, and that social hierarchy taught me being a nerd was not okay. That social hierarchy also taught me being
Yeah, that shit
chocolate and dark skin was not okay, But
right.
there's like I think there has been
Listen.
a lot of reprogramming that's had to happen, and even in relation to like not just my family, but like associates, friends, classmates. I can think back, and I remember being a kid and my parents telling me like, at some point you will face some form of racism, and this is how you should handle it. Them trying to coach me through it, and me being so much because I was a know-it-all, knew everything. No, I'm not. No, everybody loves me. Everything's gonna be fine. It's not gonna happen to me. But I remember the very first time I experienced racism. The very first time I had someone say something derogatory and kind of slur like to me that was not a black person, and it's crazy because I had forgotten this for a while, but it coming back to my remembrance and being like, dang, I was only in like the
Hmm.
sixth or seventh grade. I didn't even like think about it like that, but that's what happened. And that was the one that I remember. There's no telling what could have been said before then that I
Yeah.
still don't remember. But it was interesting because for me, like I can look at who I am now and be very proud, one of how far I've come, but also the work that I'm doing to correct some of the things that
Mhm.
happened to me as a kid or as an adolescent or as a teenager or even as a young adult.
Yeah.
Um, would you say that your relationship with yourself now is healthier than your relationship as a kid who didn't know what you know now?
You know what was funny? No, yes and no.
Okay.
Because little me loved me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ask my mom, she'll tell you I was vain. Like I loved me.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me anything about me. I loved me, and I always thought I was the flies. I always thought I was it. I always thought I had it. And I think like I don't even feel like it was like necessarily anything that other people did. I think because of the way that I've judged myself and like the way I critique myself and how much I expect out of myself because I feel like I've always known like how you know what I'm saying? Like I always knew I was smart. So you know you can do better in school, you know when you ain't trying, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like stuff like that where it's like you know what you're capable of. And I feel like there was a point where I wasn't living up to what I knew I was capable of and I started to judge myself for it, you know what I'm saying? Or I
Mm-hmm.
would make certain mistakes. And even though looking back now, it's like you only know what you know. Certain, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There's some things you just can't, you have to learn certain lessons. You're going to go through stuff. But it's like in the midst of going through it, I judged myself for it. And so that's what made me look at myself differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point where I had to kind of heal from that. I think maybe like I don't feel like until I was like maybe a teenager, that's when I think I started to kind of experience just the way I judge myself. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Not necessarily other people. And I think that is more so what I had to heal from. But little me, little me loved me.
I envy that because I think little me was okay with me. Like I knew
Hmm.
that my forte was book type stuff, knowledge. I knew that was
Hmm.
my forte. But even something I've talked about before on the pod and on Jay Safe Spaces, I have, as an adult, I've had to learn how to take a compliment. Because as a kid, I was told like, and I know why my mom did it. Because it's not, I don't think it
Hmm.
was a negative thing what she was doing. I just think that it had a negative outcome over time. Because it had me kind of correct myself mentally in not the best of ways. So as a kid, I would get complimented all the time on whether it was attractiveness. Oh, he's so handsome. Oh, he's so chocolate. Oh, he's so smart. And I was always reminded not to let that stuff go to my head. I was always reminded, hey, you can just say thank you. Or if I were to say, oh, yeah, well, I'm smart. No, that's something other people can say to you. You don't tell yourself you're smart. And it's not, and I know the goal
Hmm.
was not for me to be insecure. The goal was for me to be
It was more to be
modest,
humble.
you know,
Yeah.
humility. It was to express that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, over time, it created an insecurity in me because even as an adult, only up until a couple years ago, I was not able to take a compliment. Not, I mean, like jokingly, I could. I could always be, oh yeah, I'm bad. Like I could always joke about it, but I couldn't seriously
Hmm.
accept compliments because as a kid, there was this, and it wasn't just me. I had an aunt who did it to my cousin. So we both had that same experience where we didn't get so many compliments from our own parents because the world was complimenting us. Because every time we went
Yeah.
somewhere, oh, he's so smart. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. And they would just be like, just so you remember, to God be the glory, like, and it would just be like, it would be like, but no, and legit, that would be sometimes the response is like a reminder, like, it's not
Yeah.
you. This is a gift you were given, and
Yeah. It's
ultimately,
so funny that you say that because Alori, like, in the beginning when people would like tell her that like, oh, you're so pretty, she would be like, yeah, or that would just be her response, like, yeah,
mhm,
yeah, I do look cute, or like that. And I was like, you say thank you. It's funny that you even say that because I even as a parent, I'd be like, I'm telling her like, you say thank you, not yes. And she'll be like, yeah.
and that I think that
And it's
was
like I still compliment her though, but
mhm.
I do that too because it's like it is weird when you get as an adult if somebody was like, oh, you look cute, you just like, yep. People be
It
like,
would be,
oh,
but
okay.
as kid, like it definitely it affected my relationship with myself. Like it
Hmm.
affected. Even I did not start dating, and Lord, I'm about to put myself out there, but I didn't start dating until I was 18 because I didn't see myself
Nothing
as
wrong with
attractive.
that.
Well, the reason is because I
There's
didn't
nothing
see
wrong.
myself as attractive. That was the problem. There was something wrong with that.
Yeah,
Like
that's the
I,
problem.
and
I was gonna say because the rest was more out of vanity of like, child.
I deserved to believe in myself. I deserved to feel like I could go
Yeah.
out and date, and I deserved that security within myself. But it was also like as a child, learning things not necessarily too soon, but not getting a full picture of things will affect
Hmm.
how that child, moves forward with that information. And it led to me having like some crazy relationships only because that's what I felt like I deserved. Like
Yeah.
even when it came to being intelligent, I was in AP classes. I was in, these rooms where I was maybe the only black person in there or one of two or three black people in there.
Hmm.
And even then, because I already spoke proper, that was one of my big, that's something I really had to
Yeah.
work on. Like because as a kid, I used to speak super proper and walk on my tiptoes. And I would
God, that's a Lord.
always just get poked and prodded at for that. Even within my family, people would be like, "Why does he talk so proper?" It's like that's just who he is. And I used to think that was a
Hmm.
problem. Like for me, that I used to be like, I have to change the way I talk. I have to change the way I sound. I have to change. And it was only because I didn't see me as good enough, only because how I was taking in all of what the
Yeah.
environment was telling me. I wasn't taking it in a healthy
Yeah.
way because as a kid, you don't know what a healthy way to deal with criticism is. You don't know what a healthy way
Yeah.
to deal with compliments even is. Those are things that we're taught or that we have to experience over time. So no, I'm right with you
Yeah.
on that. Like for me, my relationship now with me is 100 times healthier than my relationship with me as a kid. Only because as a kid, those are
Hmm.
things I just didn't say out loud. I just believed them. I just was like, okay,
Yeah.
yep. People would say, "Oh, you
And you
did so
know what's
good. Good."
crazy? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know what's crazy? Like, even for me, like, so like when I was a teenager, for those who don't know, I was a whole tomboy. Like, the tomboy era is on me. And I was like, at that point, it wasn't like, the girls wasn't wearing J's. It wasn't like a thing. It wasn't like cool. It wasn't like, the girls were still girls at this point. Ooh, Marley, thanks for your little co-op. And so for me, like, even
Right.
though people like I had a friend make a comment once, it was like, oh, I feel like if you dressed real girly, you would be so pretty. Da, da, da. I'm like, first of all, bitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Secondhand comment, backhanded comment. Right. I mean, backhanded compliment. Excuse me.
Right. But it was like, I don't know, even though it's like I was aware of like, oh, if I could do this or this to get certain attention, like it was just something I just couldn't, like, I just didn't want to do it. Like, I don't know why. It was just something in me that I just didn't. I knew that it, like, oh, I could change this or this about me, or I could, pretend to like this or pretend, but I didn't want to do it. Like, I don't know what it was about me growing up where it's just like, I just didn't. I'm like, yeah, I could change, but I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't feel like
hmm
doing that. It's too much work. I don't. And then it's like, maybe it's the ADHD in me, but it's like, if I'm not interested, I can't even pretend. Like, so I don't want to do it.
For me, even like I think as I've also like I've had to go back and something that I've enjoyed doing now because for me, inner child healing looks different than maybe it does for some other people. I'm gonna just say what I do. What I've done is I'm going back and even certain things that maybe I wanted as a kid that I didn't get to get, I'm getting it for myself. Certain
Hmm.
activities or certain shows that I wanted to watch or I didn't watch because I didn't want to be perceived as a nerd or I didn't want to talk about. Like I've gotten back into anime. Like I'm so grateful for getting back into anime because I used to be a Sailor Moon ad watching. I used to watch it, but
Listen, I feel like Sailor Moon was like a lot of American kids' introduction to anime for sure. Like
For
that was
me, it was
that.
Sailor Moon. I had a cousin who was watching Dragon Ball Z. For some people, it was Yu-Gi-Oh. Some people, it was Pokemon. Like those were things that as a kid, I wanted to watch more of them. I used to watch Digimon almost every morning. And those types of things
I
I
never
really
got into
enjoyed.
Digimon.
I loved it. I loved it. It was one of my morning shows.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I did. I was
Started
into the
watching
Digimon.
Yu-Gi-Oh recently
I was
because
into the
I hate Shun
Beyblade.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
I was in the
When I
Beyblade.
saw
I
them
was in
pull
the
out that
Digimon.
trading card, I
I
was
was like all
like,
about
I
it.
don't know why it made me bad.
hmm
I don't know what it was. Something about it had made me bad about that trading, them pulling out the trading cards because I thought it was gonna be like Pokemon, but it wasn't.
Oh
But now
no.
that I'm an adult watching it, it's actually kind of cute.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is good. I enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh. I feel like it's a good I've enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh. I haven't watched any of the newer spin-offs and stuff of them, but I did start back watching the OG, and I think I might be on like season 4 or 5 or something. I started rewatching it,
Hmm.
but even like going back, and I think as a kid, I might have seen some episodes of One Piece and not knowing what it was, but now I'm like rewatching all of One Piece, and even just it's
Hmm.
something about feeding that inner child who didn't get to get fed And first of
Yeah.
all, I was eating. It wasn't that, but it's like there were certain aspects of myself that either my family didn't know enough about it to be like, oh yeah, you could totally do that, or I didn't know enough about what I desired and what I wanted and what would have made me feel more secure to be able to
Yeah.
pour more into it. So, like even with what I wear, like I will throw me on a crop top in a heartbeat because I used to always feel insecure, even as a young adult, in showing skin. I felt that everything I did had to be modest, had to be tucked away and closed. But it's like, no, I can go outside and my belly button show a little bit. Like, what? Like even growing out my hair, I don't know, just as I've gotten older, especially now, I just look at so many of the things that I used to either be denied or deny myself because of how afraid I was of what others would think of me or how they would perceive me or what they would call me, because it just was the thing. Like I've said it before about how bullied I was, and I didn't get violent bullying like some people experience. I just got everyday
Hmm.
subtle bullying, which is just as dangerous because it wears down your
Yeah.
psyche. Like it
Yeah.
wears you down when it comes to personal security, when it comes to self-esteem,
Hmm.
it wears you down. So eventually you're in the negative, and you don't realize it. And you don't realize it until either something positive comes around or until you have a really bad day and you want to, unalive yourself. And I had been there. I attempted 3 times when I was in the
Hmm.
school. And for me, like looking back on it, I'm so proud of how far I've come because a lot of it has been because of the work that I did to course correct, to
Yeah.
tell myself things differently about myself. Like, no, like you are not charcoal black, like that's not,
Yeah. You
you have a,
literally have to tell
you
yourself,
have to
you have
tell
to
yourself that.
reprogram
It's
your
a
mind and
reprogramming.
literally reprogram how you see yourself. Because it's so crazy how, like, literally, our eyes literally do create the reality that we want to see.
Hmm.
Like, it's not always, most of the time it's not accurate. It's literally creating. Sometimes your brain is filling in spaces and you see something that ain't even really there.
Right.
Everybody's done it where it's like you see a word correctly, then you go back and look and it's actually spelled correctly, but when you saw it,
It's
your
like, is that
brain
right?
fixed it for you.
Hmm.
So it's like even little subtle things like that. And that's why it's so important to continue to, like, pour into yourself even as an adult. Because
Yes.
even with, like, growing up, like, it's so crazy how some people feel like once you get to a certain age, you're too grown or too old for certain stuff. Like, some people just are so against video games as adults because you're just too old to be doing that. Or like, I personally, I love collecting my little Hot Wheels. I am One thing I'm gonna do when I'm out is if I see a Hot Wheel, I'm gonna get it. I just bought me a Batmobile Hot Wheel yesterday, and
Period.
I was so excited.
Period.
I was so excited when I seen it. I was like, oh my god, it's a Batmobile! I had to. But it's like I feel like it's so weird how people feel like once you get to a certain age, you're supposed to just stop doing or stop being into certain things, and it's like I feel like when you lose that part of you, that's those adults that, like, don't even be fun. They don't know how to have fun.
Hmm.
They don't know how to have a good time. Like they like suck up and just be doing too much. Like
I
I feel
think
like
it,
if you once you lose your childhood, you lose yourself.
yeah. And I think it's also like we have to take the time to redefine adulthood. Like, adulthood doesn't have
Yeah,
to be something so strict and confined. Like,
yes.
it's not.
That's why people be
Honestly, we're
miserable.
just older. You're just older. You can be into the exact same things you were at 12, at 21,
Yes,
at 41.
yes.
Like you're just older. It might take on a new light. Like for me, I used to have a ton of little action figures and I used to collect the wrestlers. First of all, I was a big wrestling fan as a kid. But now, like, it looks different. Like, I don't collect the wrestlers anymore. Now I have a collection of Funko Pops. And because of who I've turned
Like a
into,
little
because of
Funko
who
Pop.
I've morphed into over time, and the admiration I have for Black women, all of my Funko Pops, with the exception of 2, are Black women. And one of the 2 is an Egyptian woman. The other one, it was Jean Grey. Y'all know I was gonna get Jean Grey if I saw her. So I don't even want to hear it.
Boo, boo.
Now look, I ain't said nothing about you and your Hot Wheels. You gonna boot me in my Jean Grey?
Listen,
Hot
I
Wheels
had
ain't even
to.
got no gas tank. They're not even anatomically correct.
Listen, you lucky I didn't even say what was actually in my head after I booed her because I was gonna say find a better white
I'm
woman.
not. Well, you did say what was in your head. I'm still being judged at 31, guys. Y'all see this? Still being judged at 31. But the point was, like,
Safe space.
is it though? It don't feel very
I ain't judging
safe right
nobody but
now.
Gene. I'm just judging Gene. I
You
ain't
judged,
judging
no, you said I should have picked a better white woman. That's what you said. I should have picked a better one.
because
That
because
was a
of
judgment
her,
of
not
me
because
and
of
my
you.
taste. But back to the point.
You could have had a Taylor Swift one, then I really would have judged you.
Why would I do that?
You know that's your girl.
That y'all go ahead and believe these lies if y'all want to. I've been to see
Y'all see
Beyonce
me
twice.
defend
I
her
have yet.
against Beyonce of all people. Y'all saw it.
Are you
Y'all
done?
saw
Are
it.
you finished?
Am I lying?
Are you finished? I did not defend her. But okay, so here we are. I don't even remember what I was saying. It doesn't even matter. It was unimportant. D has the floor. Because I don't even know where I was going with it.
Okay,
I
so
surrender.
this is where we're gonna go with it. Surrender. Let's talk about shows.
Hmm.
Did you used to watch on ABC one Saturday morning where all the ABC cartoon shows it was like Recess used to come on. What else used
I
to
remember
come on?
recess.
I can't. And I used to always sneak in the living room and I would like put my finger on the power button and the volume button at the same time so I could like turn it down and my mom wouldn't know I was in there.
Uh-huh. Now I did used to do that.
Because I
I did
swear
that
she
trick.
got like bionic ears when I was a kid.
Hmm. I definitely did that trick. No, I used to love morning cartoons, especially Saturday mornings, but like morning cartoons in general
Hmm.
just used to really do it for me. Like those are some of my favorite
Yeah.
moments.
I used to love they used to do on ABC every Saturday that it was called One Saturday Morning and it would just be cartoons all morning. What were your favorite cartoons as a kid?
I almost exclusively watched Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney Channel. So it was really the majority of what was going on in the
Come
90s and
on,
early
rich kid.
2000s. It was definitely not that. I was kind of raised as an only kid, so I had a little bit more attention on me. And there were no other kids in the house. It was just me. But I mean, like, I was a huge Disney fan. And I still am. Like to this day, I'll
Yeah.
put a Disney movie on in a heartbeat. Loved me
Is
some
it
Proud
easy to
Family.
watch some of those Disney movies now as an adult, like watching it and seeing it through your adult eyes now? It's like for like me, The Little Mermaid. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a mermaid. Like that movie made me want to be a mermaid. I didn't understand why she wanted to be up here with the people. But then as an adult watching it, it frustrates me even more because like now you grown and you like, first of all, girl, you didn't even know him. Girl, you seen this man on this boat randomly.
Where's the
Y'all didn't even
sense?
say y'all didn't even say hello to each other, and you just
Hmm.
all of a sudden like, oh my god, we're in love. We're
I
gonna
want to
get
marry
married.
him.
Yes,
Yeah.
kiss my boy, give me on the land, take my fins, give me the feet. I'm down. Girl, you don't even know. Yeah.
I have to remind
Never
myself
had a
all the
conversation.
time. I have to remind myself all the time that they're movies because I start throwing so much logic in. Like, hold up, ain't you 14? Where your daddy at? Like I'd be real quick with
Why
that.
would
But
they give Lion King to us? Why would they let us see Lion King? Why would they let us see Mufasa go out like that? I never understood. When I was a kid, I was like, why would y'all do that?
I
Why would
still
you
love
do that?
Lion King.
Because
I
when you a
think
kid, you be like, "This a kid movie. It ain't gonna be nothing like that." No,
but
they
it's
said Mufasa
also
is gone.
I'll say this because even in modern kid movies, they still have discussions about people passing, and I think it is
Hmm.
important. I think it is important for kids not necessarily to experience death that early because that's not at all what I'm saying.
But to understand it,
But to begin to understand it, to begin to know that it is that the end of life is death. To because
people
some
aren't here for.
kids people aren't here forever. Some kids will lose their grandparents or their parents or their siblings at an early
Hmm.
age, and Lion King might be the example that gives them, okay, this is lost, this hurts, help them kind of start to process
Yeah,
their emotions. Because for me, honestly, if I'm being real, I didn't start actually healthily processing my emotions until I had my first counselor therapist in college because I didn't know. I didn't have a name for
I just
anxiety.
recently started healthily processing.
That's I'm like, I didn't have a name for anxiety, and I had been an anxious
Yeah,
individual most of my life and had no idea. Even now, being
yeah.
like, I'm neurodivergent, I have a little neurospiciness about me. That's something I wouldn't have considered. I just thought everybody spaced out like that. I thought everybody had a hard time focusing. I thought everybody was hyper randomly.
Listen, the fact that I saw this thing on Instagram where this lady asked her husband like they was like laying there and she just asked him like what was on his mind, like what was he thinking, and he was like nothing, like there's nothing. She's like, there's nothing in your head. He's like,
Nothing.
no. I can't
I can't
I've
either.
never had a moment where there was just nothing
Nothing.
like nothing. my mind is doing something. I have to literally be tired to go to sleep because my
Same,
mind has always got something on it.
same,
Something.
same. I completely
And you
understand that.
people experience like some people have silence in their head.
Never had that a
What
day
is
in my
that?
life. Never had that a day in my life.
What is that?
Mm-mm.
There are people out here.
No,
It's
never had that a
crazy.
day in my life. Even like, even like when it comes to embracing me 100% as me, I
Hmm.
think even being able to go out in public, because that's something we've talked about in the previous episode, is going out, like the way I present, going out in
Hmm.
public can be an experience. And when I was younger, it used to bother me so much so that like I didn't start wearing clothes that fit until I was about 20. Everything was
Yeah.
oversized because I don't need to attract any extra attention. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to experience it. I don't want no parts of it. And even when I started finding clothes, at first they were too tight. Before I started, like they were too tight. It was the skinny jean era too, so I had an excuse, but they were too tight.
Oh.
It was a skinny jean era. So they were too tight. But I don't know. Even like it's funny because now my mom will even say like I can't buy you clothes. I'll give you some money. I can't buy you no clothes. I
Hmm.
can't buy you no this. I can't buy you no that. But it's because I've really truly found myself in so many aspects and in areas and arenas of me that it's like I know exactly what I like in fragrance. I know exactly what I like in clothes. I know exactly what I like in this, in film and books and whatever. That took time, that took
Yeah.
exploration, that took like even experiencing things and being like, okay, I actually don't like that at all. I thought I was gonna like that. That's not like me.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Oh, I love this. I don't know. It for me that was another part of it because
Can
even
I
as
ask you a
kids we
question?
didn't sure, even as kids we didn't have access to certain resources or we didn't have unlimited budgets. So it's like you didn't get to taste and
Yeah.
try everything as a kid. It took us getting a little older. What's up?
Yeah. So, and if you don't want to answer this question, you don't have to. We can
Okay.
cut it out. But so, how do you like? At what age did you start to handle like how you move and how you are with like your sexuality and how you identify and stuff? Like, was that like childhood?
I mean, I think I knew it at an early age, but I didn't start moving or
Well, not
handling with it at all.
necessarily no, but like
I didn't
more
start
so of
handling it
like,
or moving with it at all until I was about 20. I didn't. I just was me.
uh,
Like, I chose not to put a label on it. I chose really not to
yeah.
acknowledge it. Like, I'd have crushes on people. A couple of them I told, most of them I didn't. And it just was what it
Did you feel
was.
like you had to change the way you act or like change the way you are around people?
I don't think up until I was in like the end of my teens, early 20s, I don't think I really showed people who I was because I didn't feel safe.
Yeah,
Like being in
definitely.
Alabama, being black,
Yeah,
then
black in Alabama.
then being queer on the spectrum for queerness. Like, I was always in church. I was always around. My cousin was in the Boy Scouts. My whole family played sports. I was always at sporting events. I never felt safe enough to just be like that. Not because I thought my family was going to take me out. Or I thought that people at school were going to jump on me extra hard or nothing like that. It wasn't even
Hmm.
that per se. It was just that was something I didn't want to accept to be true. I tried to pray it away,
Hmm.
tried to, unalive myself, tried to, and none of that worked. It wasn't until I got older and I realized that one, it's a spectrum. It looks different for
Yeah,
virtually everybody. We all fall somewhere on it. But two, it doesn't define who you are. It's just a bullet point on the
yeah.
resume. Like it's just an
It's
aspect of
crazy
who
how
you are.
people make it like,
Someone's whole
especially
identity.
in America, it's literally like you have to label yourself. Or people feel like if you are of a certain, whatever, like let's say if you're trans, they feel like you have to announce it to people. You have
Hmm.
to tell everyone. I don't get I don't get like in this even growing up, you see how they do with little girls, like even with relationships in general. Like what is people's obsession with who people are with, who people choose to lay with? Even when people do it with like, oh, are you married or are you not? Or people make it seem like little girls should want to grow up to be wives. Or they're like, oh, it's supposed to be a man and a husband and a wife or whatever. Like, I don't understand, and that conditioning starts as a kid, even in like those Disney movies and stuff, where it's
Hmm.
like they be like, these are all teenagers. A lot of those Disney princesses are teenagers,
With the
and
exception of
their
one.
main focus, with the exception, and their main focus is finding some prince to marry and make them happy and live happily ever after. And it's like, so I want to know, like, what things did you feel like you picked up from like TV and like movies and stuff like that that you had to unlearn as a kid?
So, okay, first I'll say this because I do want to offer a little bit of a correction. The majority of the Disney princesses are exactly as you described. I'm grateful for my
The new
niece,
age
my
ones are a little
goddaughter. That's what I'm
different.
like for my niece, my goddaughter, the young girls in my life coming up now because they're going to have examples of heroines who were not focused primarily on finding a man. Moana didn't want no
Hmm.
man. Merida wasn't trying to get no man.
Yeah,
Encanto,
Elsa's
she ain't
love
no
of her life
princess.
was her sister.
Look, Elsa was a little almost kind of an adult. Like and for
Yeah.
me, like the only one that really made kind of sense was Tiana. Maybe Cinderella, because Cinderella was a little bit older, but she wasn't that much older. She might have been 16.
Cinderella didn't do it for me
I'm a big
because
fan of
I'm like,
I'm a big
first
fan
of
of the
all, the
original
fact that you're
Cinderella.
letting them it for one, the fact that she was letting them call her Cinderella, that alone blew me. The way them sisters was acting blew me. Like when I tell
Too
you,
logical
and
for
then
the
on top of
era.
that, y'all wouldn't even be up in here if it wasn't for my daddy. Y'all are not. I am the blood of this castle.
Hmm.
In a way,
It was just
no
it
way.
was a very different era. But the point I was making was like I'm grateful that there are examples for because that's one thing I appreciate about my brother is the way that he's raising my niece. Is he's not he doesn't have a big emphasis on dolls and the whole princess lifestyle.
Hmm.
He's like that's like she's my princess. He's like, but I'm not
Child, I
having her go
tried.
out
It
into
didn't
this
work.
world and believe that that's all that there is for her is dolls and just being a
Hmm.
princess. Like he made the point that when we get toys or we get books or whatever, we get something that it's expansive, it's diverse. She sees women in different
Hmm.
roles and not just as the damsel. So okay, there's that. Now when it comes to TV and what I had to unlearn, there was so much because everything was always from a heteronormative viewpoint. So I just thought that that's all that there was. What I will say is instead of actually answering your question, I'm going to answer your question with a spin. The media that I got to experience that helped me come to terms with myself was as a kid sneaking and watching RuPaul's Drag Race, sneaking and watching
Hmm.
Noah's Ark. Those
Oh my
two
God, Noah's Ark was so good.
I have watched and I'll still rewatch Noah's
Noah's
Ark
Ark was
to this
good.
day. It is one
I'm
of my
about to say I
favorite
never saw it
series.
until college, but it was
One of my
good.
favorite series of all time. For people who haven't seen it, it is on Prime. You can buy it, you can rent it, you can check it out. There are probably some episodes and bits and tidbits on YouTube, but it was on Logo, which was the lesbian and gay channel
Hmm.
provided by Viacom MTV, and there was so much media on that channel that gave different like that showed me that queer people were not just what they I had been told they were. Like, because there's this huge narrative that queer people are predators. There's
Yeah,
there's predators on every side of the spectrum. So we're not going to
everywhere.
place that just with my folk. Um, and two, like you're going to see more predators that are heterosexual than anything else, just because heterosexual is the majority. Just going to throw that out there. But for me, if it weren't for media like RuPaul's Drag Race showing that even when it came to drag queens, which I had a misconception of, even when it came to drag queens, when they're out of their makeup, they are still people. You know, they're still whole people with identities, with lives, with experiences, some of which still love being a man, you know, love being the guy that they are outside of the makeup. And when they put on the makeup, now I'm
Hmm.
in persona. I'm a character that I play, that I perform to the best of my
Yeah,
ability. Noah's Ark showed me that to be black and to be queer there's a million things you can be, a million ways that can look. You had a professor, you had an artist, you had a writer, you had entrepreneur. So you know you had an activist. Nobody, their sole job, like none of them were whores, none of them were pedos. Like everybody had a profession, and they all met in college for the most part. So it was
yeah,
like giving for me that was so important as like a benchmark, as a standard for which I could start redefining myself.
yeah. That's one
So
of the things I loved about Drag Race is like when you get to see them when they're getting ready and they're talking about their lives and what they've been through
what
and
they've
their
been through. Hmm.
experiences. And when I tell you the number of times I have shed a tear on watching Drag Race,
Period.
and one of them is telling their story, it's like because we live in our own world and we're all in our own little bubbles, we really don't stop a lot of times to think about or put ourselves in somebody else's shoes
Somebody
of
else's
like
shoes.
what it's
Hmm.
like to go through their life. That's why I'm such an inquisitive person and I love to ask people questions because I don't be trying to be in people's business. I just want to understand their walk of life and
Hmm.
understand what it's like to be in their shoes or what they've
What
experienced.
they
I don't
experience.
know
Yeah.
what it is. It's just something about that fascinates me to where I just want to just know about people,
Hmm.
especially people who are different from me. And so it's like that's one of my favorite things about Drag Race is like you really get to see them as people, not as the drag queens either, but just a person
It's a whole
who's had a
person.
life and who's had experience. You know what I'm saying? And they're just expressing themselves through their art. That's all.
So how would you answer that question? Were there any things, any media that you grew up experiencing, or the top
Yes.
one that you can think of that you had to relearn or you had to deprogram?
Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I feel like I had to relearn just in general what it means to be a woman and what a woman is
Hmm.
because the media pumped us a specific type of woman
Right.
and you have to fit in this stereotype in this box. And I feel like I had to completely, and it's like when you live in a patriarchy, it's difficult to detach from
Hmm.
because we're all socialized a certain way to believe certain things, to think a certain way, and there aren't many of us who buck that. Most people
Yeah.
don't want to challenge that. More so people are now, which shout out to the people. But it's like even as a woman, like you like unlearning that like you don't have to your main goal in life is not to be like attached to some man. Like
Hmm.
that's not you know what I'm saying? That's not a goal.
Right.
If you find companionship with someone,
Congratulations.
blessed be. But that's not a goal. Being a wife is not a goal. Like even that the way that women they view their value on their ability to become a wife to the point where they put themselves in these ridiculous relationships just to be a wife and then they stay in these crazy situations and their
Just to
reason
be
is
somebody's
because
wife.
I'm a
Hmm.
wife. I'm a wife, you don't understand. Like girl,
You're a wife. You don't
your
understand.
plight is your own, you
Hmm.
chose to be attached to that. You can
Hmm.
unattach if you would like, please.
Please.
But it's like even the way people view people who are single and it's like unlearning that it's a problem to
To
be
be
alone. Like
single.
it's okay to just be cool with you. Like you don't have to be pressed to. And it's like women, we are taught like our value is really a place in our ability to attach ourselves to someone or who we're attached to. Which I get in, the 30s, the 40s, all, whatever. That was what they had to do because it wasn't like they can go out and get no job and be
Right.
making what the man was making anyway. You wasn't about to be buying no house. Nobody's going to be giving you no deeds, no bank loans, no none of that. So it's like I understand it was more like a survival skill, but it became considered tradition. And I feel like for me, that's something that I'm unlearning is like it doesn't matter either way. Like if you become a wife, cute, girl, look good, do your thing. Congratulations. I hope it works for you. But it's not a goal. Like
Hmm.
it shouldn't be where you place your value. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
Like your quality of life is where your value is. If we
Boom.
being honest.
Period.
And you don't have to have somebody else to have a good quality of life.
You just got to
Now
have
it's cool
yourself.
somebody along for the ride, they on your same frequency,
You
you
just got to
know.
have
But
yourself.
yes.
Hmm. You
So that's
do.
what I had to unlearn. Because,
Period.
child, as a woman, I had to just unlearn everything.
Everything.
Everything the
I love
patriarchy
that,
said,
especially
I
this
had to catch
country.
it.
Especially this country because it is such a
Yes.
patriarchy that is founded on patriarchy, that is supported by patriarchy. That's adorned in
And they love to tell
patriarchy.
us how we should be grateful because we're so free compared to everyone else. When our country is the one that bullies the other folks to stay the way that they are.
Hmm.
But that's a whole
Whole
other
nother episode. Whole nother episode.
digest.
But I do actually want to do a quick for the culture since we're shouting out women. I have one that I really want to shout out. Y'all know we've talked a little bit about the Olympics. Before I do, hang on. I have to show y'all an example of what it means to recondition, relearn, to deprogram, and to do things as an adult that I couldn't do as a kid that is feeding and healing that inner child. So I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, as I told y'all, and I meant to show y'all this, but this is what I got from it.
Oh, how cute is that?
It's a Wolverine cup with a little Deadpool topper that says
I
"Bite
wish
me."
it was the opposite.
They do have opposite, but I didn't want the Deadpool cup.
Okay.
I didn't want the Deadpool cup. I wanted the Wolverine
Okay.
cup.
I
Yeah,
thought that was the
they
only one
have.
they
No, they had a cup for
had.
each of them. I think and there might have been like a Colossus cup, or somebody else had a cup. And then the toppers, you had options
Hmm.
between Wolverine and Deadpool and somebody else. But this was the combo I wanted.
At the theater?
Yeah, at the theater. And so, yep, I went to I'm gonna shout them out. Shout out to the AMC. I had a great time. I'm a Stubbs insider, It's cute. I had my popcorn. I had my
Oh.
little strawberry lemonade with a splash of Sprite and a pump of peach. And it was a cute little
Come on,
beverage.
Papa Peach.
And then I took me a shot. And I enjoyed myself. It was a
Hmm.
great time because the herb can't happen in the theater, but the shot can. But
Okay.
it was a great
Ooh, I should
time.
have gone
But
see it.
this is what I got this because when I saw it, also I went to the matinee. First of all, I was like, I'm paying very little for this ticket. I'm gonna splurge on the souvenir. And it has his name, it has, Deadpool and Wolverine on the back. But I got this because as a kid, these were the types of things I couldn't just get because I wanted.
Yeah.
We could just go to the movie and I get all of the collectibles. Like I might get a bucket, I might get a little toy, I might, if that's something they're going to give. But it wasn't always that. Like sometimes I went to the movie with my sister. My sister was like, "People of hell want ice water. I don't care that you bought the Deadpool toy." That's what she would have hit me with. So I just have to show that
Okay.
sometimes
True, but I was a kid. The movie was the treat.
that was the treat. But
You better
like
enjoy.
as an adult, y'all, and this is the last piece of advice I just want to leave you with is as an adult, start thinking about the things that you did not get as a kid, not even as
Hmm.
a condemnation or some type of damning of your parents, because sometimes it was just resources. Go back and look at those
Yeah.
things. And as an adult now who has more independence, who has more discretionary income, treat yourself to something like that. If it's that Lego set that you want, get the Lego set. There's so many more of
Yeah,
us
I
who are,
kind of want to get into
there's so
Lego.
many more millennials, black
Hmm.
female millennials at that, who are Lego masters now. Like it's a whole subculture of TikTok and social
Yep.
media. So like, I'm just saying, feed yourself, especially those little things that as a kid we were told were pointless. Those little things as a kid we were told would take us nowhere. Go back and sing that song. Go back and write that poem. Go back and act in that play. Join the local theater troupe. Like, do what's going to make you happy. Feed your spirit, and you will heal that inner child. Okay, I'm done. Off the
Cause I'm
soapbox.
about to start back getting into trading cards.
You know,
Like I want to get my
something
cards back. I
like,
want to. I had a good collection, good stack.
girl, and I'm gonna
But
tell
now
you
that I'm
this.
grown, I can get the case to keep them in
I'm
and
gonna tell you
stuff. Cause
this.
child,
Go
I'm
to the
nothing
thrift
about it.
stores. Go to
Yeah.
the local, not just Goodwill. Go to the local thrift stores because they'll typically have the full cases where people have come in and donated baseball cards and trading
Hmm.
cards and all the things. They might even have. You can get this 500 box for $10. So go in to the
Yeah.
local pawn
Yeah.
shops and find them there because you'd be surprised. I'm gonna
Yeah.
teach y'all one more trick because since I'm in the giving mood. I have been doing some manifestation work, and I've been listening to a lot of manifestors lately. But one thing that is a trick that I've learned that works for me every single time, it has worked every single time I've used it, is if you know you're going to a thrift store, go with an item in mind and you will manifest it in the thrift store.
Yes.
Go with an item in mind. Every
My
time I've
mom
gone to the
told me I
thrift
should get the
store
Hot
looking for
Wheels from the
something
thrift store
specific,
too.
I'm telling you, every time I'm going in looking for something specific, I found it. One time I went in, I wanted those, the big old platform clogs from like the 70s. I went into a
Hmm.
thrift store when I was in Atlanta. It was the first pair of shoes I saw when I walked up the steps. I said, get out. I went into another thrift store and I was like, I want a leather jacket, but I want like a moto jacket, like the little shortcut, real fitted. I don't want oversized leather
Yeah.
jacket because I'm too small. Like I think it would just look a little crazy. Walked right in. I found me a real good quality. It's hanging up on my wall. Very good leather jacket. But those are tips and tricks that we can use because it's something about the recognition of like our heart's desire, our energy, our subconscious mind. When they link like that and you go into a place with something on your mind, it's there. They're going to bring it right on out. Okay.
Yeah.
Or they'll send you straight to the right place that has it. Okay. For the culture. Y'all know we talked last week a little bit about the Olympics and getting to some of the things. U.S. has still been doing their thing, still been showing out. But I want to shout out somebody in particular because I think we've all witnessed her journey over the past few years. It has been rocky, it has been up and down, and it ended in tears, but tears of joy, tears of celebration. And that is Sha'Carri Richardson. Miss Ma'am, you did your big one, honey. You did your big one. I can just say I'm so proud of you because one, to be at your first to qualify again, then to
Yeah.
compete. Your solo competition, you got silver, which is phenomenal. Phenomenal
It's
for your first
phenomenal. To be
Olympics.
clear.
And then your second event that you qualified for and that you performed in I think it was the U.S. relay, the women's relay, gold.
Period.
Gold, honey. Congratulations. Like, this is
And looking
just a
good while doing
reminder.
it.
You said, in what?
I said, and looking good while doing
And
it.
looking good while doing it. This is like, I saw someone talking about it and they're like, at this point, I'm ready. She needs the lash endorsement. She needs the nail endorsement. She needs the Nike for Life
I need
endorsement.
her own
All of it.
cause.
And the hair endorsement, all of it. Like, I want
Yes.
everyone to come in who can
She
provide
needs to be everywhere.
endorsements to her because she is our FloJo. She is our FloJo, and this is the
Yes.
time. This is the time for Fenty to come in
Yes.
and give her the makeup deal, for her to come in and
Yes.
do the hair deal, and for somebody to come in and do the nail deal. Like, this is the girl, this is the time, this is the era. Also, I don't know if you saw the recent ad campaign for Mercedes with Simone Biles, but she's like in the middle of
Mm-mm.
she's in the middle of one of her stunts and she forms the Mercedes logo and that is the ad campaign.
Yes.
Love it for
I know
her.
that's right.
Love it for her. There is some
I know that's right.
controversy that we will probably dive into in a future episode because we're going to wait to get a little bit more information on it. But Jordan Childs, sweet baby gymnast on the U.S. Olympic team, did have her award stripped from her over some foolishness because y'all know they like to pull foolishness
Some
out in Paris
foolishness.
and at the Olympics. So it is in appeals right now. The U.S. team is appealing the decision and we'll keep y'all updated on that. But I just want to say we love y'all. You know, take some time to really heal that inner child yourself. Do some of that work. Get yourself together.
Yeah.
You know, treat yourself to if it's a Twinkie that you never got to have that Twinkie. You know,
They don't taste the
they don't taste
same.
good,
Don't do it.
sometimes it's not even about them tasting good. It's about the
The
act. You
formula
know,
change.
it's not even. Yeah, I never really liked Twinkies. They weren't really my thing. But you know, like Fig Newton, I don't know what your thing is. Find that thing that you didn't get to get as a child, honey buns, like, and not saying overindulge, but start treating that inner child and start feeling the
Yeah.
healing and you'll
Just
see
do
it.
things that you love.
Do things that you
Genuinely love.
love.
Not the
Really
things that they tell
discover
you have
yourself.
to love.
Yes, really discover yourself. Thank y'all so much for tuning into this episode of the 311 Chronicles. We love y'all, and we will see y'all next week in another one. Peace.